Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I am Sherrilyn and I am so glad you found me. Today we're going to get right into it. This case has been so requested. I know it's consumed so many of you. It's consumed me over this past week. Before we get started, I do have a quick message for you. And before even watching the quick message, I know that I'm going to be considering I don't even know what I was trying to say. Oh, committing a sin in the clip for thanking our sponsor because I'm wearing the Philly hat and a New York sweater, okay? The roots are rooting, and I've been so under the weather that when I filmed, I was just in my cozy Rachel Green New York vibe cozy sweater, okay? So that's what's going on there. So let's get into that message. Thank you to our sponsor today, Lumi. I've been so curious about Lumi, so I was not only thankful for them wanting to support my channel, but for also sending me their starter pack so I could actually try a few of their products. If you've never heard of Lumi before, it is a whole body aluminum-free deodorant, aluminum-free for all of my girls. You know how hard it can be sometimes to find aluminum-free. So when I first saw that, I was like, okay, let's send me something. But it's all body, so it's good for your armpits, your privates, your belly button, your feet, beyond. Wherever you're thinking, it's good for that. It is also clinically proven to provide 72-hour odor control, even on sensitive skin. What I was really impressed by was that it was actually created by a female OBGYN doctor who I would say, is very familiar probably with seeing patients come in and stuff with certain concerns that probably do involve odor and just like seeing people at like a very like vulnerable state. So it's designed to just stop the odor before it even starts. It is also pH optimized so that you can use it everywhere on your body. And there are tons of scents that you can choose from. There is lavender sage, which I am loving. I have the whole body deodorant of that, but they have clean tangerine. That's my shower one. So nice and fresh. Soft powder, minted cucumber, fresh alpine, peony rose. And my surprise was the toasted coconut. My surprise was that I liked it. At first I was like, oh, did I have this on my list? I didn't recall putting it on my list, and I'm glad because I wouldn't have tried it, and I really, really like it. I like the way that it works with my body, and almost like my perfume. Whenever I put it on with my perfume, I don't know. The combo's it's really nice. Like I said, they also have body washes for in the shower, cleansing bars, body like full cream deodorants, and my new purse staple. They have body wipes, which is so perfect for summer, especially for me at the lake. If you've been a long time Sippindale, like I just pretty much live at the lake at the summer. So stay tuned for possible that being my filming location. But when you're out there, sometimes you just want to give a once over, give a little once over under the boobs in the armpit region, make sure that bikini line is fresh, So I'm really excited about those. I also think you're going to be pleasantly surprised by the body lotion deodorant. It's just something that I never used before, and there is just something satisfying. I almost feel like you're breaking the rules by putting like a lotion on your armpits and it working. It's so nice. It goes on so smooth and clear. It doesn't pill, if that's, I think that's the right word, like where it just gets all like pilly or oily or greasy. It feels like you're lotioning up your armpits, and it's nice, and then it's protecting you. Very fun. If you've never tried them, like I said, Lumi's starter pack is the best deal for new customers because it does come with a full-size stick of deodorant. You get that cream deodorant tube and then 2 free products like the wipes or even the mini body wash to try out in the shower. You also get free US shipping, and for the Sippindales, Lumi is offering an extra $5 off when you order through the link in my description, and then you use my code Sherrilyn. So that works out to about like over 40% off. Killer deal. It is an amazing product. I know that you are going to love them. Thank you so much, Lumi, for not only sponsoring today's video, but for also hooking up my Sippindales. All right, like I said, today's case has been very, very requested, very heavy. Because it's so heavy, I wanna have a little moment, a little grounding. I think we're definitely going to need it at the end too, so then I can give the answer at the end. I keep forgetting that we have like new people coming and watching. So I know I brought the riddles back. So for anybody who had missed them and then now I'm bringing them back, I tell them at the end. But I do like seeing your guesses, so don't hold off because I do like seeing the guesses. And usually I'll do a spoiler. If you're right, I'll give you a little like, woohoo. But I like seeing them. So, but that is usually where you can find them, is at the end of the video. So today's riddle is, what kind of band never plays music? All right, if you are a longtime Sippindale, you know that I often don't talk about cases that are unfolding in real time, but just with recent development, it feels that this one is really important to talk about. I honestly was wanting to talk about it regardless, and just through research, it just ended up kind of unfolding itself. We'll kind of get into why I'm doing the air quotes or whatever, but we are talking about Mica Miller today. She's a 30-year-old woman who was recently estranged from her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller. And it was pretty much him who originally had garnered a lot of attention to Mica's death because he announced it to his congregation. And the way that he did it, it was like after he delivered his full, is it a sermon? But it was calm, cool, collected. He's making jokes throughout the whole sermon. Anyways, and then this is what he did at the end.
We're not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can. So y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit. 'Cause I don't want to have. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks. I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away, and it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. Yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come. But just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, my bishop, he can pray. I'll get him a microphone. He'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share as well.
So when this was posted, a lot of people had a lot to say, including Mica's friends and family, people who were past members of the church who knew the two of them. And they were really pleading with the public to make sure that law enforcement did a full investigation to the backstory of what led up to him, saying like she had mental health and needed her medication. The internet did what the internet did when they saw that Mica's dad and sister were saying, please do not buy the narrative that he is pushing about her struggles with mental health. We had spoken to her. Mica was on a path to, restarting her life and getting out of this monster's grips. When I saw this, I'm not gonna lie, my emotions absolutely did take over, as did a lot of people online. Doing what I do for a living, though, I knew that I had a responsibility with my platform to try my hardest to remain open-minded. And that's when, while I was still looking into everything, just only a couple days ago, the medical examiner ruled Mica's cause of death to be self-inflicted. The sheriff's office at Robeson County also came forward with a media statement and surveillance to support this being what actually happened. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. I just want you to know, starting off right now, I know a lot of you feel like me and are really upset with the outcome. We are going to talk about ways that we can continue to support the family in the next steps, because even with this ruling, it doesn't mean that their fight for justice is over. Let's just start from the beginning of what's been released by those who knew John Paul. If I say JP, sometimes that's how he's also referred to. So John Paul, JP, one person who knew John Paul and Mica personally and can kind of give us a little bit of insight as to what Mica was going through for years. According to friends and family, Mica began attending youth group at the church that John Paul owns. It is called Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and she started going there when she was 14. He was 28 and he befriended her at 14. At the time he was married, just this obviously has nothing to do with anything, but his wife eerily looks like Mica. That was an observation I had. And then as I was looking online, other people were seeing it. And at first I thought that I had just read the name wrong and that it was a picture of Mica. But no, this was the first wife. So him and his first wife had 5 children. And according to those who went to this church, it was no secret that John Paul started grooming Mica at the age of 14. I want to give a shout out to Blah5523 on Reddit for a very cohesive timeline. During that first marriage, there were definitely issues. There were a number of charges that were brought against him. His wife had filed a no contact order several times against him. There were also domestic violence charges. Some other charges that he had while they were married were damage to property, I think like mischief charges, 2 of those, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, possession of liquor to minor, possession of consumed liquor by minor, possession of cannabis, and that was like on the same night, so I guess he's the one who like supplied it, contributing to the delinquency of a child, domestic battery / bodily harm, domestic battery / physical contact, assault / and battery of a high aggravated nature. And there were 2 of those. Also, being on the premise after warning or refusing to leave. We will also see this as a pattern. Now, my understanding is Mica was married to someone else while JP was still married to his first wife. When she was 23, she divorced her husband. JP divorced his wife, and the 2 of them quickly married. It has been stated a number of times that there was an affair going on prior to their divorces, but we need to focus on the fact that what we know about predators and people who abuse their power to manipulate, other people, especially younger people. Like she's in a youth group. He's the young pastor, grooming her since the age of 14 and just like preying on that power imbalance for over 10 years. So that's the focus here. I know I've seen like she cheated on her husband, and it's like she was 14 when she met him. This is how grooming works. He was married, she married, all of a sudden, like he's giving the attention. He's doing what groomers do. So the 2 get married when Mica is 23. John Paul is 37 at this time. And, he's the pastor of this church. She's he loves to like say like first lady. We'll see a reference to that in a little bit. But what's being highlighted a lot from this church, Solid Rock, from friends, family, and from those who had gone there and even wrote like local reviews, is that JP ran off a lot of people from this church. He's being described as having very misogynistic views. He would stalk former members if they left, verbally attack people, and a lot of people feared for Mica. And they had every right to worry about Mica, because what we're learning now is he was verbally, financially, mentally, spiritually, physically, and sexually abusive to her throughout their marriage. If she wanted to leave, he would have her committed to mental hospitals and openly talk about this in his sermons. And when she would get released and go back to church, it was like she was encouraged to also talk about her mental struggles and how she's put her faith and trust into JP and then also God. But what he failed to mention is he's the reason, allegedly, for these struggles. What she went through was absolute torture, emotional, mental, physical torture. There are also disturbing allegations about some things that went on sexually that got released. The family has pleaded not to continue repeating specifics because it does not honor Mica. It's also distasteful to continue, sharing it for a salacious narrative, and I agree, so I'm not going to get into it, but she endured a lot. Finally, in February 2024, this February, Mica escaped JP and was fearful. This was a really big deal. If you've left a situation like this, you can understand what she was probably going through. Friends were hiding her because she was scared she was going to be put back into a mental institution. And to give you an example of the type of things that she would have to deal with and what was publicly put out there by him at church, when she left, this is what JP decided to talk about in February as part of one of his sermons. He says, a year ago, my wife went to Africa. They had a wonderful trip. She came back with the idea that she wanted to start a school in Africa. This, from what I know, is true. And 6 weeks ago, she goes to the hospital, gets out, and just leaves me. Completely leaves me. Drains our bank accounts. And I go, guess what? While you're talking bad about me out there, I'm building a school in Africa for over 100 kids in order to get them fed. He goes on a little bit more. And then he goes, one day I'm going to preach to God about getting rich, strong, healthy, and finding a hot wife that loves Jesus. That's what I'm going to do. In it, I guess he goes on to continue talking poorly about Mica, saying referring to when she was in the hospital. He said, I looked at her phone. He's saying this during a sermon. I looked at her phone and I counted over the past 2 years. There was 18 people who had texted her and said, if you ever want to talk to somebody about your husband, you can talk to me and say anything and I'll keep it confidential. And I guess when he said this made him very angry. There is messages that shows that he was using her dream about this school to control her. I think to intimidate and mentally mess with her and just try to beat her down too. This allegedly is an email that he sent her. Hey Mica, I hope you're doing well. I'm ready to be done and move on and heal and find a first lady who won't treat me the way you are. I really hope you do great things. I was willing to do anything. I even had the amazing desire to have kids since you're not on meds. And I want to apologize for the flowers and fruit. It was already paid for to last until your birthday. Feel free to give it all away. I sent that to you before I found out all the things that I had recently found out about you and what you've done, and you disgust me. So please, let's meet soon and be divorced and let this nightmare be over. For me. Let this nightmare be over for me. I'm enjoying all the African missions, and Pastor Jumba and all the pastors' wives are so excited for what we're doing. Oh my God, if you have been with somebody who is like this, I know your blood is boiling as intense. What do I want to say? I need the word for that. It's over boiling. We expect 120 kids our first semester. I have about 10 to 12 people going this time, including Kristen and Tom and Becca and Jonathan. I'm assuming that these people probably have once meant something to her that he's just just jabbing it in a little further. And I need to move on ASAP. I need a woman who will respect me and love me and be worthy of all that being a first lady is about. Buddy, you are not the president. You are not finding a first lady. Women run. Oh, for somebody who is telling this woman that we just got to move on for me. This is so bad for me. Get out of my life. He really had a hard time letting her go. And that is obvious in 2 incident reports that were made on the same day of him stalking her. These are both on March 11th. It was Mica who had filed the report, and it was for destruction, damage, vandalism of property. A lot of this is redacted. I'll have this up on the screen for you to see, but so where it says the suspect, that's redacted just based on everything that we know. I feel confident saying I believe we know who this is, that it's JP, in my opinion. So it says that officers were dispatched in Myrtle Beach for a report of razor blades being placed in Mica's tire at the location that she called. When they spoke with Mica, she stated that this is the second time a razor has deflated her tire in the last week. So she noticed as she was leaving the Spring-Made pier that she heard this pop, and then noticed a piece of metal that was protruding from her tire. She was able to make it home, and then when she got home, the tire was fully deflated at this point. When she went to go and remove this from the tire, she realizes that this was like some sort of device that you could purchase online, and it was like a tire deflation device. And that she believed that suspect one was the one who placed it in the tire. There's also more that's redacted here. She said that she noticed strange activity and believed that people were following and watching her. And she said that this isn't the first time that something between her and suspect one have gone through. There's a history of similar actions against her. So then this report ended with there isn't enough evidence to prove that suspect one is the one that placed this device under the tire. And so at this point, there was nothing further that could be done, but the report was filed. Then, less than 2 hours later, there's another call. It's a different officer who responds, and at this point responds to the East Coast Honda dealership in Myrtle Beach, and he's coming for allegations of harassment. Upon my arrival, I spoke to the victim, which advised me she had just been out with one of our officers getting a report for an unknown person slashing her tires. She advised me that that officer had helped change her tire, and then she went to the gas station for gas and straight to East Coast Honda to get her tire fixed. So that previous officer actually helped her change that tire, probably put it on like a little donut. She went to get gas, went to Honda, and then she advised that while she was at the gas station, the suspect in this incident showed up next to her at the pump trying to talk to her. She told him to go away. She does not want to talk. And then when she pulled her phone out to record, he sped off. The victim then leaves and goes to East Coast Honda, and the suspect shows up again. A part of this is like 3 lines is redacted. Then this officer says, while I was out with the victim, she receives a call with no caller ID. The call ended up being the suspect, and the suspect was advised that the victim does not want any further contact, and if he proceeds, then warrants may possibly be written up. The suspect acknowledged the advisory by saying, okay. The victim advised me she was afraid for her life. She also advised she blocks his numbers and still gets calls and texts from him on other numbers. After clearing the call and my departure from the Honda dealership, the victim had texted me and stated that the mechanics had found a tracking device on her vehicle. About an hour later, she notified me she was at the magistrate's office trying to get a restraining order. I asked the victim if I could come get the GPS from her, and she said yes. While I was standing out in front of the magistrate's office with the victim, a white Honda Accord had slowed down, rolled down Cecil Lane. I'm assuming that this is in front of the office. So this is a road. And the victim stated that was a suspect. It says in her car driving by, but I believe that was a typo. The vehicle then sped up and drove off. Nothing further. So in here, she speaks to 2 officers same day. It gives some context as to what she was dealing with on the daily, and then you have the emails, and it's just the mind game, the manipulation, the fear, like the stalking. Things seemed to have been looking up for Mica this month, though. She started reconnecting with friends that JP had forced her to isolate from. She even sent a text to a friend on April 5th that basically said, thank you for all of your gentle warnings throughout the years about JP. I know that you knew I wasn't ready to get out at the time, but looking back, those warnings that you gave me were so helpful. especially when I was trying to make these really big decisions of moving on. And I've replayed those conversations in our head over and over. And I wish, I knew then that there was something that I could have done then to get out, but I've done it now. So she's letting her friend know, like, thank you. I'm replaying everything that you've said. I wasn't at the point to get out now, but it's those words that I've been hanging on to. I've done it. She also spoke a lot on Facebook, and her Facebook is what drew me to want to talk about her case. I just saw this beautiful woman who was trying to embrace this new beginning, and you can see this bravery coming through and her wanting to take her life back. But you can also see pain in her eyes and processing all of this abuse that she had endured and gotten away from. Her last post on April 9th was a selfie, and it just is captioned, "When terrible, terrible, terrible things happen to you." Y'all know what I'm talking about. And then it said, RPF, resting peace face, hashtag still blessed, hashtag God is good. She also posted on March 30th about her second baptism, which is so beautiful seeing those pictures. She just it just looks like a magazine. Absolutely beautiful. The sunset, peace. She was such a beautiful woman. And what was interesting about those photos is in the comments, there's somebody who asks, like, "Oh, is this your second baptism?" And she says, "Yeah, I don't have the best memories attached to the first." And my understanding is, I believe it was him, JP, or that church that had baptized her. Then just weeks ago, Mica posted something on Facebook that I've seen quite a bit, and I really want to share because it's her words. It's her emotion that you're able to see, and her trying to offer advice for people who may be in an abusive relationship and the struggles that I think particularly one thing that she struggled with a lot was the faith aspect to it too. So she captioned it, God hates divorce, but why? And I think this is just her healing and trying to process all of that and having that used against her for so long.
So today my heart's a little heavy. I've had a lot of women that have reached out to me about situations of abuse. And I just want to tell you what a lot of people have told me lately and reminded me, because I think I forgot. I knew, but I pushed it in the back of my head just because of my situation. But you are the bride of Christ. Before anybody else's bride, male or female, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what gender you are. Abuse is abuse. And you are the bride of Christ. And my Bible says that he took all the abuse you could think of for you so that you didn't have to live that life of slavery and bondage and pain. Jesus took it all for you. So you don't have to stay in a abusive relationship, whether that's sexual, whether that's somebody forcing you to take illegal drugs or alcohol abuse or physical abuse, psychological abuse, making you think that this is all your fault, or you're a bad mom, or you're a bad wife, or you're a bad husband, or you're not giving it your all when you know you are. God hates divorce, but why? According to everybody I've asked and the scriptures that I've found, it's because it hurts people. But does abuse hurt people? How do you think God feels about that? So I want to remind you, like a bunch of people have been reminding me lately, that I'm God's bride first. And even an earthly spouse who's a good spouse, when they know that their bride is being hurt, just imagine what an earthly spouse does. What do you think your heavenly spouse does when you're the bride of Christ and he sees his bride going through abuse and hurt? what you think he thinks about that. So, encouragement in all this is you are the bride of Christ first before anybody else's. And he's got you. And he sees you. And he loves you.
48 hours before Mica was found dead, she had filed for divorce and a protective order. In her final week, she had spoken to friends and told them about her plans for the upcoming week. She was planning on meeting friends at church on Sunday, April 28th. On Saturday, April 27th, Mica left work in her uniform. She had a job at, I believe, J. Peters, which was a local restaurant, and she never showed up for church the next day. Her body was found an hour and a half away in Lumberton, North Carolina, and her cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head. Once a clip of the sermon that JP gave and the message he said at the end, and basically asking everybody not to talk about it, just leave silently and don't talk about it in the church, when that went viral. And then looking at her own Facebook posts, the consensus was that this was not self-inflicted. It didn't seem like an option. And so all of a sudden, Justice for Mica went viral. And I want to reiterate and be, very clear. I don't blame anybody for believing that. I believe it, and I'll tell you where I still stand now. And for the family to get that news after seeing all of the positive changes that she was trying to make in her life and just clawing her way out of, I want to say, the hell that she was in with this man. Again, it makes so much sense why they wouldn't feel that was self-inflicted. And be so angry, like the way that he's going on and talking like that in church. Even her obituary, I don't know if it's been confirmed that he was the one who had wrote it, but there's pretty heavy evidence that it is, because it refers to him like the whole time. It basically says like she would praise her husband for every church service, telling him he was the best preacher in the world, even if that wasn't true. And she'd also say he was the funniest preacher in the world, even though that wasn't true either. Like, it just makes you want to throw up all over the place. That being said, as of May 6th, the medical examiner did rule Mica's death as self-inflicted. Prior to this, there was speculation spreading like wildfire that the gunshot wound was to the back of her head. But as per the North Carolina medical examiner report, that wasn't the case. Again, it's brought us to where we are now, and it's perfectly understandable to sympathize and understand why, especially her family, didn't believe this. Even Mica's sister had gone to Facebook and said, do not believe all of these false stories that are being said about Mica. She was God-fearing. She was a loving woman. She had a lot of joy, and she didn't deserve the abuse that she endured. If you hear anything about this from anyone other than family, please question it and then reach out to myself, my other siblings, or my parents if you need answers. And her sister she has several sisters, but her sister Sierra specifically, I've seen on Facebook, has been quite an advocate for Mica. And this is prior to Mica's death. As early as February, I have seen her having Mica's back, talking about how Mica lost control over her Facebook. So the posts that were being made about her weren't her. She's also sharing, signs of a narcissist, and then she'll share it on her post. Things that a narcissist will say about their ex, or signs that your pastor is a narcissist, which it's clear that it's about JP and what he was putting Mica through at that time. And she even straight out says that, Mica has been through it. We all know that Mica's been through it. When her birthday had recently come up, she was like, let's make it special, send her a message. So even before we learned, the ultimate outcome of this situation, her family had been screaming from the rooftops how dangerous this man is. It was after her death that even more people in her life came forward to support what the family was saying about what Mica had gone through. I wanted to share one post from a woman named Angela who was close to Mica, and she said, "I know this is long, but it is the truth. Please take the time to read this. Mica Miller deserves our total honesty and support. So here I sit for almost a week mourning the death of Mica, watching, waiting, and praying for answers. I've only posted on her and how I have felt about losing someone who is such a sweet soul. I miss her, and I'm struggling to wrap my head around her being gone and the circumstances surrounding her death. I will not sit here and pretend I know exactly what happened on Saturday, but I know a lot. I am well aware in the past that Mica had mental health issues, and I witnessed her struggle firsthand. But I also know that in the last few months, this was used as a weapon to control her. The Mica I saw at the beginning of her mental health journey was not the Mica I had witnessed in the last month. The Mica I was seeing was a grown woman trying to break the chains of an abusive marriage. When I talked to Mica last, she was making plans, moving forward, and trusting God. Her faith was her shield. She had reconnected with people she had been isolated from, myself included. She was sorting out her new normal, and God was putting the right people around her. When we had our first meeting in years, we sat at lunch and talked until dinner time. We had been in regular communication since that day. I was part of Mica's church for years. We did life together during that season. Leaving that church was the hardest thing that Brian and I ever did. We loved the people at the church, but God had made it clear that we needed to go because it was a toxic environment. This is something that a lot of past members have said based on the reviews, based on their own testimonies on their public platforms. We endured relentless attacks from the pastor. It was unlike anything we had ever experienced. In ministry, God calls us where He needs us, and instead of supporting and loving us, our entire family came under attack. There were attempts to sabotage us in our new church home, calls made to employers, dropping in at my place of business in the middle of my workday when I refused to answer calls, more than I can count. Emails that were rants in writing. It was a nightmare for close to a month. So just put yourself in this mindset and this situation. This is a woman, a married woman, who was part of the church, who had left, who felt like this was the best thing for herself and her family, remove themselves from a toxic situation, and this is what they dealt with. Mica wasn't just leaving a church. She was leaving her marriage. She was done. She hired a lawyer, she moved out, and she was getting a divorce. She was left with nothing but her faith, her family, and her small circle of friends. Was it hard? Yes. She had her tires cut multiple times, found multiple trackers on her car, couch hopped in fear of being found, and was hospitalized by her husband when it was completely unnecessary. She confided to me that she felt like an orphan and feared that no church would ever want her because of him. What she didn't know is that a large portion of us who had experienced the wrath of exiting that church were waiting for her with open arms. I talked to her multiple times in her final week here on earth. She was making plans to get her hair cut, getting help with her car payment because she was a little short after paying her divorce lawyer, and planning to meet us for the second service at church on Sunday. My final text with her was on Friday at 9:19 p.m., and it was a woman making plans to live. What happened between Friday night and Saturday? I was so overwhelmed seeing two certain people on the news last night trying to minimize Mica by painting her mentally ill and crying like they were currently present in her life. They were not. She wasn't having a mental meltdown when the scales were lifted from her eyes and she walked away. She was a warrior wearing the full armor of God. #justice for Mica. Stuff like this just upsets me so much because just based on my personal experience and what I've seen my mom go through in her past in a relationship like this, I just hate when specifically a man like this just presents themselves as holier than thou and is just, in my opinion, pure evil. There are other people coming forward with their stories. There's a woman on TikTok, I believe her name is Kyler, not Tyler is her TikTok name. She's actually spoken with a lot of victims who are sharing their story and their experiences with John Paul. So I highly recommend going over and looking at some of those stories are coming through. One of the women says, like, as hard as this is my story, and I'm encouraging all victims to come forward, because your story and your voice matters. You're not alone. And she's dealing with a lot of guilt because she's like, had I, shared my story, would that have made a difference? I hope she knows that it probably wouldn't have, because of the power imbalance and the situation that he was in, owning this church and manipulating and having control over all of these people. And then just, look the way that he put his own wife on blast in front of people. It's so sad, because I do feel a lot of people who are in these situations, who personally know victims and the abusers, do reflect and put on some guilt. Like, what could I have done? And there's really not much that can be done in these situations, which is terrible. Mica did all the right things. She left, she made the report, she did all of the things. I want to read another post here, though, by somebody who was good friends with Mica and familiar with what she was going through. She said, "We watched a grown man groom a youth member for years. We watched him take absolutely everything from her. We watched him destroy her mentally. We watched him destroy his own family during the process. We watched him play God over a congregation for over a decade. He is a true wolf in sheep's clothing. He has stayed untouchable. He has put himself at the top of everything. He has gotten away with all of his wrongdoings. I am so sorry, Mica Miller. You deserved better. You deserved our help and our love. I will carry this guilt forever, knowing I should have done so much more. I can't change the past, but I will not stay quiet any longer. To all of those old SRM members, the church members, I hope you feel the same. Enough is enough. We have to bring this man down from the pulpit. #justice for Mica." Again, just want to reiterate, like, things like that break my heart, because this is the guilt that you feel. You shouldn't. But yes, absolutely, you nailed it. Use your voices and your word. Enough. Your words. Enough is enough. Something I had just lightly touched on was the allegations of disturbing sexual abuse that would obviously support and understand and sympathize why Mica could potentially just go into a mental spiral. But there was also allegations of JP cheating, something that everybody was aware of. According to multiple sources, John Paul was dating a woman from the church for quite a while. They had been seen together out at her children's soccer games, like rather cozy, and they've been photographed multiple times since Mica's death, the first time being like 3 days after Mica died, and the two of them like went for a little sushi date. And the reason I bring that up is because this also kind of just went on and took a life of its own in this whole other aspect of Mica's case. And that's because this woman had a husband who died in 2021. His name was Chris Skinner, and he was a motivational speaker who inspired a lot of people after he had been in an accident. I believe he was hit by a drunk driver, and he was in a wheelchair for 20 years. According to his wife, he really enjoyed going to their community pool, and he often did that by himself. So on Labor Day of 2021, he went to the pool. According to reports, he got too close to the pool with his wheelchair. He fell in, and there was nobody there to see and save him. On top of that, JP was the one who conducted his funeral. So the reason I wanted to mention it is because like this doesn't, there's nothing in his death report that shows that anything other than accidental is the cause. This is all just circumstantial adding up while we're learning about Mica, but it is part of the conspiracies that are kind of swirling out there. So I did want to mention it. Another thing that is being talked about a lot is JP's father, who has allegedly done a lot of harm to people. And through Mica's death, these people are also finding their voices. His name is Wayne Miller, and he's somebody, in my opinion, who I would never allow personally to be around young children, especially boys, to past molestation charges and just unsettling accounts from people recently. You can search the hashtag Justice for Mica on Facebook, TikTok. You can see videos, pictures, text messages, all of that. Just please be responsible. Do your fact checking. Don't just run wild. When I was looking at Sierra's Facebook the other day, I saw like a recent post of hers just pleading for everybody not to be sharing her or her family's address because it's taking away from the work that they need to do with Mica. And it's like, that is not okay. Like, if you come across somebody exposing that or sharing that information, like, please report that. Also, I don't know if this person or anybody who knows what I'm talking about will see this, but I went into rage mode after I was reading through the comments on some of Mica's family and friends posts. So their own family and friends posts, because that's where I like to look and get firsthand information. And on their posts, I'm seeing somebody advertising their true crime group, soliciting like people on Mica's sister's post, being like, if you're interested in following the case and want to talk about it in private setting, come follow us over here. I was like, are you joking me right? I commented. I don't usually comment, and I commented. I was like, this is her sister. I don't get it. I don't get it. More than anything right now, all her family needs from us is just support. It's just to sometimes just sit back, listen, see what they need from us, not go and be like, oh, let's bring people over here and get the conspiracies going. Like, please. And they need a lot of support right now. And we just need to follow and see what that's going to look like. It was a day after Mica's family held a memorial. So there were two memorials that were held. There was the one that JP and his church did, and that ended up having a lot of protesters outside. I'm not going to say that anybody did anything wrong by going out there and having their stance and supporting Mica. And Mica's family also had a memorial. It made me cry just like watching it, not even knowing them or Mica, but just feeling so much sadness. They did it on the beach where she just recently got rebaptized. And then the day after is when Robeson County Sheriff's Office released their findings and ultimately closed their investigation. So I want to read what they released to the media, and then just pictures, timelines, and then Mica's 911 call. So this was the media release from Robeson County Sheriff's Office on Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. They say, an investigation that has tugged on the hearts of people across the nation has been ruled a suicide. The decision was based on surveillance footage, interviews, physical evidence, and the examination of the North Carolina Medical Examiner's Office. On Saturday, April 27th, 2024, at approximately 2:54 p.m., Robeson County 911 Communication Center received a 911 call from a female. The caller asked the dispatcher if her phone could be located because she was going to unalive herself and wanted her family to be able to find her body. During the conversation with the dispatcher, the caller hung up the phone and the dispatcher was unable to contact the caller. The dispatcher was able to find the location of the caller and dispatched a deputy to the location. The deputies contacted the Lumber River State Park superintendent upon their arrival at Lumber River State Park in Orem, North Carolina. The deputies and state park rangers conducted a search of the area for the victim. The search was aided by a Robeson County Sheriff's Office drone. During the investigation, a black Honda Accord with a South Carolina registration was located in the parking lot at the state park. The investigators confirmed that the vehicle belonged to Mica Miller, 30, of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Investigators located a Sig Sauer gun case in the passenger seat of the vehicle and a box of ammunition in the center console of the vehicle. Investigators also found a receipt for the Sig Sauer handgun from a pawn shop and a receipt from a convenience store in the vehicle. Both receipts were dated for same day of Miller's death, April 27th, 2024. During the search of the park, the 911 caller investigators were approached by an individual who had found a bag near the water's edge with an identification belonging to Miller. The individual stated that he heard someone crying and a gunshot while he was fishing. Law enforcement continued to search, and E911 received a call from an individual who stated that a body was located in the water. Law enforcement responded to the location and contacted the North Carolina Medical Examiner's Office upon locating the deceased. The victim was identified as Mica Miller. A Sig Sauer 9mm handgun was located in the water at the crime scene during the search of the area. The serial number on the weapon matched the gun box that was found in Miller's Honda Accord. During the investigation, Miller's phone and other personal belongings were located. A search of Miller's phone revealed that she conducted a Google search for national parks near me, and the Lumber River State Park location was provided. The investigation also revealed that Miller and her estranged husband, John Paul Miller, had been separated and were involved in the legal system. This information led to the investigators confirming the whereabouts of Miller and a female that he is allegedly romantically involved with. Investigators were able to confirm that both individuals were not in North Carolina on the night before or the day of Mica Miller's death. Investigators learned through interviews that John Paul Miller was at an athletic event in Charleston on the day of Mica Miller's death. John Miller's vehicle was observed traveling on Highway 17 bypass in Horry County at 2:22 p.m. on April 27, 2004. The investigation confirmed that John Miller was accompanied while traveling to and from the event in Charleston, South Carolina. Investigators conducted several interviews and developed a timeline of events in relation to Miller's death on April 24, 2024. At 11 a.m., Miller was observed on her Ring camera arriving at her residence on Margarita Drive, Myrtle Beach. At 11:38 a.m., she was observed on her Ring camera leaving her residence. At 12:12 p.m., Miller is observed on store surveillance walking into Dick's Pawn Shop, which is located at 1852, somewhere, Mr. Joe White Ave? I don't think I'm saying that right. 12:13 p.m., Miller is observed at the register and initiates the purchase of a weapon. 12:34 p.m., Miller is observed leaving Dick's Pawn Shop after purchasing a weapon and ammunition. 1:06 p.m., Miller's black Honda is observed traveling on Highway 501 near 4 Mile Road, Conway, South Carolina. 1:27 p.m., Miller's black Honda is observed arriving at 41 Grocery and Grill, which is located at 41 South Carolina, Mullen, South Carolina. At 1:35, she's observed leaving the store after purchasing a drink and gas. At 2:54, Miller calls Robeson County from River State Park.
Robeson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
Let me see. You don't know where you're at?
A national park.
What's the phone number you're calling me from? Where's the park located at?
In Fair Bluff. I have my location on, I think, on my phone. Find my phone is on. I just did my location.
Okay, I'm showing, I don't think you are in Robeson County. Are you at the Lumber River State Park?
Yeah, that's where I am.
Tell me what's happened.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Okay, ma'am. Just listen to what I'm saying, okay? Let me make sure I got the exact location where you're at, okay? Just 1 minute.
That's when Mica places her 911 call, and the Robeson County Sheriff's Office finishes their post by saying, First, let me say on behalf of the Robeson County Sheriff's Office that our sincere condolences are being sent to the family and friends of Mica Miller. This incident has garnered much attention from across the Carolinas and beyond. I want to assure everyone that a very methodical investigation was concluded by our criminal investigations team and crime scene investigative team. Unfortunately, rumors and conspiracy theories were spreading quickly and assumptions were being made. However, in the end, we must make decisions based on the facts and evidence that has been gathered. While I know it's not what many people want to hear, the evidence is quite clear and compelling, and we are as saddened as anyone that this has occurred. There are many factors that we have reviewed and have occurred over an extended period of time that are probably related to the reason for this investigation. But in the end, sadly, a tragic decision was made by Mica that ended her life. And I think that is so important to say at the end, for them to acknowledge that there is a series of events that have led to this, and that's kind of where we need to support the family. First, I've recently just seen a video from Chronicles of Olivia on TikTok, who actually went to the site and spoke with a man who had seen Mica. This person said she was alone. They had no idea if he knew anything. He would have done what he could to help, but she had just smiled, walked past him, said hi, and continued walking. And he said that the place that she was found in was very isolated because there was a lot of people at the river that day. So she had gone off the path. I believe Olivia said in there it was like a mile or maybe half a mile. I'll play the video so that you can see where she had gone and that it was quite isolated. I also want to show the video that she posted because it just gives more context to the location and how private it was, and just like it. I always struggle with saying like how beautiful it was and sounded, because it's like an eerie beautiful. It's a heartbreaking beautiful, but it was something that you just looked and it was like this peace and then also heartbreak when you just hear the peace and the birds.
Today I visited the spot where Mica Miller took her own life. It was a very sad and solemn sight to see. Mica drove an hour and a half north of Myrtle Beach to Lumber River State Park. I encountered a man who said that he crossed paths with Mica and briefly spoke with her just right before she took her life. He said that if he had known that she had a weapon on her, he would have done anything in his power to stop her. He said that she was very beautiful and smiled at him and waved and said hi. He said that at first she went to the river where there were a lot more people. It was crowded there, and then she went in the opposite direction down this path.
And then
he said that she went about a mile in, and he took my mom and I and showed us where. The local man also tells me that this boat is what was used to recover her body. He also tells me that one of his buddies was fishing, and he had heard someone crying, and then a big pop sound. One might ask, why did she take her own life? Well, upon further digging into her past, a dark history of abuse from her husband unfolds. Just yesterday, there was a report that Mica had been groomed by her husband at the age of 10. Just weeks before her death, her tires had been slashed. She also reported that she was being followed and watched. The morning after she passed, her husband did an entire sermon, and at the very end made an announcement that she had passed. He told people to leave and not talk about it, and he also talked about how Mica had a mental illness and that she took her own life. 3 days later, his alleged mistress also talked about Mica's mental illness. Many of us thought this was disparaging and distasteful. I can't stop thinking about her final moments here and what was going through her mind and the feeling of pain and helplessness that she must have felt. On April 27th, she made a 911 call so that her location could be tracked and her family would be able to find her.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
And now for a moment of silence.
I want to kind of wrap things up with, I know how hard all of this is to digest, how heartbreaking it is, just realizing the degree that this woman was beaten down and that it was put on mental health. I can't speak for Mica, but I can just kind of share a personal perspective as somebody who has been diagnosed with mental health disorders and who is somebody who is in a very mentally, emotionally, physically abusive relationship. Those two things are not the same. My medication and my therapy helps me be me. It helps me be balanced. And that takes a long time. But the mental abuse that I dealt with made me feel like quote unquote crazier and broke me far more than depression and anxiety ever did. So yeah, maybe on the outside people are thinking, oh, Mica's going through mental health struggles, but it's also your environment. It's been what you've been told, the control, things that are being influenced in your every day-to-day life. Like you are just broken down. I cannot imagine what that would have been like to be with somebody like that type of person for 14 years. I was not in that relationship for that long. And I can confidently say that I would have not been as strong as Mica as long as she was. That woman was a warrior and she deserves so much better. And it is so sad because she was just like on that brink of getting out. So this is where we need to support the family. I know that I've said that a lot. Now I finally am going to share my thoughts. But as far as I know, they are moving forward civilly. They want to press civil charges. And I am no professional, but by the evidence and the testimonies that are already coming forward, I believe that they obviously have a really strong chance of holding JP responsible. I also want to put it out there that he's on dating sites. Like only 4 weeks ago, some gal had posted on there. This is prior to Mica's death. She posted on a "Are we dating the same guy?" thread. And on that post, like people were like, red flag, run. There's allegations of SA. He's still married, but separated. He's making her life hell. He's selling things behind her back, putting her into like hospitals. Even Mica's sister Sierra had seen this before Mica's death and was like, this is my sister's husband. Please get in touch with me so I can share like about protecting yourself. Another thing that the family is going through right now is Mica's sister and brother have filed a petition to have control over Mica's estate so that it does not go to JP. So they have both filed affidavits that are another powerful glimpse as just to what she was going through. And basically what they're wanting to do is just make sure that Sierra is essentially being able to represent Mica and being like, you do not get to break her down, take everything because you were married. Like there is strong proof and evidence that she was getting away from you, that you were abusive, and I will be fighting for my sister. So there is a lot that they have on their plate right now. As of right now, I saw that the church posted that he's been relieved of his duties at the church for like healing and counseling. I suggest he be in the same type of healing centers that he was putting Mica in because he should be there for a very long time working on himself. But I personally would take the testimonies of people who have firsthand accounts of their experience from that church and not go there, even with him not being associated. Like there's lots. Please just find another. I will be following up with this civil update outcomes. I'll keep you guys posted on that. This takes a lot of time. It also requires a lot of financial support for the family. I know that they have a GoFundMe, so I want to leave that in the description, because like I said so much, like no family is prepared for these types of battles. They have publicly stated, even just when they were wanting to get all together as a family, that they didn't have the financial means just even for flights to get their mom closer to them. So this is, I don't even think that they're prepared for the amount of money that this is going to cost them to fight somebody like him in court civilly. So please go take a peek at the GoFundMe that I will have linked below. I think $5 is the minimum. And I know that if you can spare that, that would mean a great deal to this family. You guys know, like, I love a hashtag moment when we do donations. So I was kind of thinking like 5 for fighting, because it's playoffs and like my team, the Oilers, are in it, and this family is in for a fight and we've got their back. But I don't know, that also could be really lame. So just do whatever you choose if you can. If you can't, please just share it and just, kind of give a blurb as to what's going on. And I know that it will help them so much. So thank you guys for listening. I know today was heavy. I have struggled a lot this week with everything. It's brought back a lot of trauma, like for myself. And I know a lot of you who have also gone through similar situations as Mica are probably feeling really somber and heavy as well. So I love you. You're strong. Mica's so strong, and just, it's time we hold people like this accountable. So I will keep you posted. I will leave you here today. Let's leave off with the answer to our riddle. So the riddle was, what kind of band never plays music? And the answer is a rubber band. And I don't know why, but when I say that, I'm like, it'd be the Cash, I'd be the rubber band. So that's music. And I feel like anyways. All right. This is where I leave you. I love you. I will see you in the next video. I will miss you terribly. Until then, make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon.